I'm here with Nick Curvo, and we are going to talk about his new project, Spirit Was. Also, talk about his first and most recent album, Heaven's Just a Cloud. So, welcome, Nick. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. It's going great. How are you?
Right. It's cold in here, but maybe it's colder in your place because you are from New York, isn't it?
I live in New York. I'm from Connecticut, just north of New York City.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, it's pretty cold. Getting pretty cold over here.
Yeah, I mean, the weather down there is cold, but here I'm just a crying baby, and we are at 20 degrees. Well, I don't know if it's Celsius or Fahrenheit, but it's
I
degrees.
don't know Celsius too much, but I know that that's colder. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's Mexico, so we are like in the cold days, but it's awesome that and a pleasure that you can join us today. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So well, let's start. Yeah. You have already launched your first album, Having Just a Cloud. By the way, quite an album you have there. Um, with this whole new project, Spirit Was. How do you feel now you have finished this new process in your life? How's with that? Tell us about it.
Well, I feel amazing. I've been working on this album for a long time, and I've been working on this project in general for even longer than that. So it feels really amazing to finally have some music out there that people can listen to. I've been working on these songs for a really, really long time. So it's just really wild that people are actually listening to it now. And it's really nice. Everything that everyone has been saying to me about it, and all the feedback has been so positive, and everyone is saying, I've been waiting for this for so long and stuff. So it feels really, really nice. Obviously, the world is a different place now than it was when I was putting out albums in 2016 and things like that. So it definitely feels a lot different. Um, there's no big tour that we're going to be going on or anything like that, but it's still really, really nice. It feels very special, and I'm super happy to have it out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was a very short, long process time. I don't know, it's kind of both, but because we know that you released a first single on August, and the this single, I Saw the Wheel, which is the song that actually opens this album. Uh,
Mhm.
how did you start with this Spirit Was project? It was like uh, you started like, well, I don't know, but since 2018, I think.
Yeah, around 2018. So my main music project was a band called Level Up. I started it with some friends in college around 2009, and we played together for almost 10 years. We played a lot. We played a lot around the US. We played in Europe and the UK. We put out a bunch of albums. And then just before 2018, we decided to stop playing together. And it was a little surprising to me. I wasn't really expecting it. So all of a sudden, I found myself in a position where I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? And that that project was very collaborative. We had three different people writing the songs in that project, and so that was really fun. And it's a really amazing way to work on music, and it takes a lot of pressure off of each individual songwriter, to be kind of sharing the load. But I was definitely I play a lot of different instruments. I play guitar, bass, and drums, and I like to arrange my own music. So I was always definitely curious what it would feel like to just do an entire project by myself and play all the instruments. I didn't really have an outlet to do anything like that at the time, or I just didn't really feel like I needed to because I had all this other music stuff going on. But when that band stopped playing together, I was like, okay, well, here's my opportunity to see how this goes. And I had already had some ideas that I was working on, but that I wasn't taking very seriously. But then when that happened, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to flesh out these ideas. Those were the first couple Spirit Was songs. two of which I put out in 2018. Some early recordings, just because I wanted to kind of have something out there as like sort of a placeholder. I knew it was going to take me a long time to make the album. And then I just got to it. I found some new people to play music with in the city. Before the pandemic, we were playing quite a bit, and it was really fun. Obviously, in 2020, everything went downhill and there was nobody playing music, but it actually ended up sort of giving me a pretty good opportunity to work on the album and finish it, and to do the recording, because the recording was all just me. For the most part, was me and an engineer, so it was like felt pretty safe, and we could actually get a lot done. It was really, obviously, it was very hard during the pandemic, but it was really nice to have something like this to work on during that time.
Yeah, awesome. I think it's also very artistic, and also the album itself, it's so artistic. That leads me to the next part. I think for the people who don't know you very well, and you're also a visual artist. That's awesome. I have actually seen your work, and it's amazing.
Thank you.
You make guitar pedals and you customize them. Also, you create the illustration for the record. That it's quite a job. I think it is like, yeah, that part that you are telling us, that you wanted to make it something more like yourself, and these projects come out. And then I don't know if you take inspiration, motivation, or some kind of experience in all of this artistic world you have, uh, in order to perform your songs, or you have like different process to make music. How was the process in this album for you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the visual art and the music is it all comes from a similar place, but it's a different practice for both. For me, making the music was at first, it was very intimidating, because like I said, I was coming from a group where I was sharing a lot of the songwriting responsibilities. And I definitely had a moment where I was like, wow, I don't know if I can write like 12 songs, 10 or 12 songs. It might take me a
Yeah.
really long time. And it did take me a really long time, but it was really, really fun. And I was able to just sort of, I don't know. I mean, being in a collaborative project is really fun, and a really good, I think it's a really good musical exercise, right? To write part of a song and then to sort of let it go, and to bring it to somebody else, and to be like, I trust you, I like what you do, and I think that you're good, and so let's finish this together. Do you have any ideas? But it's also really fun. When I started this project, I was like, I'm just gonna go off and make all the decisions, and just, I'm not gonna feel bad about it at all. I'm just gonna do everything, and I'm gonna take my time. And I essentially took all the songs and I planned them out on the computer using software instruments. So obviously the album is very guitar heavy, but I took all of my guitar parts and I worked them all out on software instruments so that I could try different things out on the computer. Living in New York City is great, but it's a little bit more difficult to play loud music all the time. I am lucky enough to have a practice space that I can go to, but it's not in my house. And so, or it's not my apartment. And so I wanted a way to work on music in my apartment whenever I wanted to, and using software instruments and software to arrange the music was very, very helpful for me. And I really dove in, and I spent a long time just tweaking all these little things. But it worked out, because during that time I knew that I didn't want to record the album myself. I like recording music, but I knew that there was somebody else that could probably do a better job with it. And for that, I needed to find a label. So I just took my time finding the labels. I made some demo recordings through that time and sent them out to friends that I knew that work in the industry. And I'm very lucky to have landed on a label that wanted to work with me. And that kind of happened around the same time where I was just about wrapping up the music. So they were able to help me out with, getting together with an engineer and making it all happen, which I feel very lucky for.
Cool, awesome. The actually, I love all the way you play with the instruments. Yeah, we have like a variety of a lot of instruments, and that reminds me a little. I love that song, little song at the end of the "Here Comes My Man."
Mhm.
Sounds like actually Christmas light as music sounds, I don't know. And it feels like nostalgic. It's part of the spirit of the album, I think, and it's so good and great. I think it's like refreshed because nowadays I think like musicians don't take that risk of being more experimental, and you do. And I don't know, it's a combination of different sounds and rhythms. We have like the synthesizers and the guitars, drums. Also, we have violin and more. And all of this comes into play in order to make this special sound of metal, psychedelic rock, also country, distortion, and it makes this experimental atmosphere that blows my mind. I think because nowadays, yeah, that's like the difficult part of for an artist, also as a musician, like uh, play with those instruments and make it sounds like cohesive. And no, I don't know if so. How do you start this record? Tell us about that creative process. I mean, do you start with some ideas back in their 2018, or your sense of start playing something and then start the process? I don't know if you like to start jamming and then start the lyrics. I don't know.
Um, well, first of all, thank you so much for everything. I'm so happy that you like the album.
Oh, it's awesome, man.
That little recording at the end of that song is actually I was walking down the street and in where I live, and it was around the holidays. And I always thought that that song "Here Comes My Man" kind of had sort of a Christmas song sort of flavor to it.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was walking down the street, and there was a store, and outside they had like those light arrangements, those like Christmas light arrangements that play songs, and they just had like so many of them, like maybe I don't know, 20 or 30 of them all plugged in at once,
Well,
set up and just playing all at once. And I was like, this is the weirdest sound that I've ever heard in my life, and I recorded it on my phone. That's another reason why I had a really fun time making this album on my own, and just being able to make any decision like that I wanted to, where I was like, I want to put this weird recording that I made on my phone at the end of this song. I really like albums that have little interludes and little funny sounds and interesting. I like field recordings. I think that's a really interesting way to listen to something, and just being able to. That's a lot of what I was doing over this long period of time where I was arranging the album, was also figuring out things like that. I was like, oh, like these songs go well one into the other, but then there's this space, like I kind of want something there. And I make a lot of recordings like that on my phone, so I was able to go through and pick out the ones that I liked and be like, oh, I think this fits well here, and really figure everything out. In terms of my approach to writing the songs, actually, when I was working on this album, I learned sort of a new technique for myself that I'll use for the rest of my life now. I used to write a lot of music starting with the guitar, or starting with bass, or just starting with an instrument in my hand, and trying to come up with something, and maybe coming up with an entire idea, and then being like, okay, I have to write vocals to this song. And I actually think it's very difficult to have a song idea in your head. Maybe you have like some chords, or you have a riff, or you have just any kind of instrumental part, and then sitting down and having that in mind and then writing vocals over it. I actually think is very hard, and sort of unsatisfying to the most part, and and can be kind of discouraging sometimes. And while I was working on this album, I started just writing songs in my head. and starting just with the vocals and I don't know, sometimes when you're thinking about the vocals, you can kind of hear the other parts in your head. You know, you can kind of hear the groove, you can
Okay.
hear the bass going, you know, you can hear
Yeah.
the drums like playing, stuff like that. So for a lot of the songs on the album, the first song that I did this with was the song called A Stranger to the One. I wrote that song completely in my head while I was like at work or walking around or on the bus or something. I wrote all of the melody and the lyrics in my head, and then I figured it out on guitar. And I thought that that was a really, really fun way to make music, actually, because when you're working with your hands, you are limited to what you know how to play. You're limited to all sorts of different things. But when you are writing music in your head,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
only limited to your own imagination, right? You can just imagine whatever you want. And I think that contributed a lot to how the songs slow down and change tempo and go to these different places, because a lot of it, I just wrote it in my head and I was like, oh, I just want to go here. And then you can just go there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Actually, I think it's hard for an artist to put down the ideas or touch down. I think it's very, very hard. I mean, I'm just a mortal who thinks that music it's a very difficult part of all the human beings. I think it's a very difficult topic because I don't know. I think we sometimes we just need like be ourselves and just put it that sounds of ourselves in a recording, and then the how do you say you start like making these connections and they all start like sound in your head. But yeah, I don't know, it's difficult. I think it's difficult being a musician. But you tell me it is quite difficult. And also being a musician and an artist, I think it's awesome the combination you have in there, because I don't know, your art and your illustrations and also the music, it's like all cohesive and have that feeling of being like this new process in your life. So now we are talking about all this creative process and all you have mentioned in here. Did you find difficulties with the idea of sounds or rhythm, or and how do you usually break with those problems?
I mean, I think there's obviously, you know, so many different ways to make music. And I think that some people really express themselves through things like improvisation, right? Making a music on the spot and having it have this sort of organic energy that they're just sort of making up off the top of their head. I'm not like that. And I am very, very pragmatic. Um, for me, making music and making art is kind of like making a crossword puzzle or something, right? Because
Okay.
if you're looking at an empty piece of paper, or even worse with music, if you're not looking at anything, right? With music, you're like, okay, I'm gonna write a song, and there's nothing there. And so it can be a very intimidating feeling to be looking at nothing and to try to make something. And so I just try to eliminate as many factors as I can, eliminate as many loose ends as I can, and be like, okay, here's my idea. It's like a little seed, and that's it. It's just, that's all I have. And I don't have to sit down and finish this right now, right? I have to take this little idea and sit down and develop it in some way, in any way, right? And maybe that means just putting it on the computer, or maybe that means just figuring it out on guitar, or maybe that means I'm going to finish this melody in my head, or maybe, you know, there's so many different things that you can do, and you don't have to finish it all at one time. And I think if you get worried or about finishing it all in one time, sitting down and be like, I'm going to finish this song right now. It can be very stressful, and it can be really discouraging, and it can lead you to not do it. unfortunately. But if you just take it little piece by little piece by little piece, it might take you 3 years to write an album, but it was really fun, and I was never stressed. I was never stressed out because I was just like, okay, today I'm gonna poke around with this. And most of the time, as long as you come up with like one little thing, maybe it's just one little thing, a drum fill, or maybe it's a sound that you found, or maybe it's, oh, I think these two pieces fit together in a nice way, then I think that's very successful, right? If you sit down for 30 minutes and do that, I think that's equally successful, if not sometimes more successful than being like, I'm going to sit down all day today and for 10 hours and I'm going to finish this thing. And then you might not, and it might feel, you might be sad after, you might be frustrated, if you don't do that. But if you just take it little baby steps, right? Little revisions. It's the same way with my visual art. I used to think really, so I work a lot with pen and ink, which is a very unforgiving medium, right? If you're drawing in pen and ink and you make a mistake, that's it. There's no eraser. There's no, there's nothing. And I used to find it very, very frustrating and very, very stressful because I used to look at an empty piece of paper and draw on it with a pen. And you mess up a lot. You mess up a lot and you have to start over, and it's really frustrating. But in the past couple of years, especially while I was working on this album, I totally changed the way that I changed the way that I look at making music, but I also really changed the way that I look at making visual art. And I started sketching, and I started doing the same sort of thing, baby steps, little revisions, right? If you have an idea, draw it in pencil, and you can sit down and you can draw it out in pencil, and it's fun, and it's smooth, and it's fast, and it's loose, and you can make mistakes, and you can erase it, and it's expressive, and stuff like that. And then you can stop for the night. And you don't have to finish the whole thing, because the next day you can revise it. You can draw it again. You could trace it. You can, it's your drawing. You can do whatever you want with it. And so that's something that I tried to do, is not be stressed out. The world is so stressful and scary and all that other stuff and unpleasant. When you're making art, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. And so like just trying to keep it fun and keep it loose is sort of my new goal. And
Cool.
I have found that yeah, revisions, doing drafts, doing, making something and crumpling it up and throwing it away and not worrying about it and just doing it again or something, or just playing around. Like you said, being experimental, like, if you like music that is experimental, that music is coming from experimentation, which is playing around. It's just messing around, and hoping that something happens that you like. But if it doesn't, that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's part of the problem nowadays in the music industry, because I don't know, social media has made this situation like bigger because of, I don't know, for example, TikTok. It's like you have these songs for about 10 seconds, and then you force yourself to make more music, but you don't really like that music, but you have to do it because, I don't know, the world, as you say, is like very frustrating and very stressful. So yeah, I think that's part of the, and I don't know if it is a problem, an actual problem, but yeah, I think you get a point, and I'm totally agreed with you, because yeah, we need to take the time, also take a big breath, deep breath, and keep going, So, well, awesome. You have merch of the record. Also, you have customized guitar pedals and illustrations. Where we can find of your merch, if you can tell us.
Yeah, sure. Well, my Instagram is the best place to find anything. My Instagram is @spiritwas, and there's an underscore underneath, spirit_was. But I also have a website, spiritwas.com. Everything is available on there. And that is the best. Spiritwas.com is the best place to see everything that I've worked on. It's has all my drawings, has all the pedals and all the music and everything. As far as merch for the album, a really good place to go is my record label's website, dangercollectiverecords.com. Or if you just search Danger Collective Records. But there's also a link for that on my Instagram. And we're making I did all the merch designs. I designed a couple t-shirts and hats. And we also have, the music is on every type of media that you could possibly want. We have records and CDs and tapes. The record actually comes with a poster, a very large poster of the album artwork folded inside, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, we have a lot of good stuff available, and it's all available worldwide. So
cool.
Check it out for sure.
Cool. Well, so it's been an honor to talking and learning with you. Thank you very much for the time. If I missed something, or if you want to add something to this conversation, feel free. But yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
The pleasure is mine. So how you, and I wish you the best, and congratulations of the album.
Thank you so much.